Hey there. So a lot of you have seen my videos, and in them I've got many different setups for Linux CNC. And you'll notice usually down on the right hand side I'll have some kind of a specialized panel which does different functions or has buttons or displays that are very useful. Well, when I create those, there's two ways that it can be done. The first method, and the one that I use the most, is PyVCP. It's using an XML-based document that you manually fill out. The other way that I do it is with Glade VCP. And we use a software called Glade to create the panel, which is then imported and you connect up the buttons. And what I want to do is I want to give you an overview on both methods and let you decide so that you know which one you want to do. So, let's get started. This panel was designed with PyVCP. Now, what you do is you open up a text editor and you start writing it using XML. And I'll show you a sample of what that looks like in a little bit. The nice thing about it is you can apply all your colors and all your formatting and all your changes with one file. It's a little more difficult to write, and you can take a close look at the spindle speed indicator here and you can see what it looks like. You can take a look at the buttons and you'll see the difference here as we switch over to the Glade. Now this is the Glade, and you'll notice everything on the left hand side looks exactly the same. However, when you start looking at the things on the right hand side, you'll see that the spindle indicator, more precisely the dial indicator widget, looks a little bit cleaner, and you can see the way the buttons have a little bit of a different look and feel to them. The advantage is that in Glade you can go ahead and do all your positioning and do all your layouts. The disadvantage is you will have to have a second Python file, which goes in and tells what the colors are and any font changes and stuff like that. And I'll go over it lightly here in just a couple minutes. Now these are the two panels side by side. The one on the left is done with the PyVCP. The one on the right is done with the Glade. And as you can see, the Glade is a little bit lighter in color. The PyVCP, I think the colors are a little bit more intense. Each one has their own benefits, and it's a personal preference. So let's take a little more detail into how they're actually made. So what we're looking at here is for the PyVCP panel. This is the actual XML. The top section here is what's used to make just the meter. And what I'm doing is showing you a few variables and showing you that when you want to edit this, you simply go in and you type. And the screen's a little bit jerky because of the screen capture program. But this is how it works. Everything is broken down into sections, and you manually define everything. Okay? So now what we'll do is we'll go in here, and I want to make a point here that there's two versions of Glade, and we'll go into that a little bit later. But you go into the Glade, you open it up, and you'll see your different components. So here's the window, and here is what we've created. So you start off with making a window, and then you scroll down, you put your containers in, and then you go down a little bit more and you pick whatever little HAL widgets that you want and you put them in. Once you do that, you can go in there and you can name them, you can assign different attributes to them. There's something called packing, and the packing will affect how it fits in the slot, and you can experiment with that, and you see that when you turn it on and off, they get wider or narrower or taller or shorter. Okay, so you can go in and you can make those kind of changes. Now I'm going to start and do a new one here just briefly, just to kind of give you an idea. So the first thing we do is scroll up here and get a window. So it's just a plain window. Then we've got different containers. I'm going to drop this one in and tell it to give me 3 divisions, and you'll see I've got 3 divisions in there. Okay, then I want to put a label in the top and in the bottom. So I'm going to put one there. Alright, and I can change the text on it, put whatever text we want in there. Alright, then there's other attributes you can do. You can set it up for bold, change the fonts, you can change the color of the fonts too. Let's go down and do that. Pick a nice blue. There we go. And so you can see you can change some of the attributes. And then we'll just drop a label in the bottom. Okay. Now this space I'd like to subdivide it. So I'm going to scroll up and I'm going to pick these vertical columns and then I'm going to tell it 4. Alright. So you need, now it's split up into 4 different sections. So I'll throw a button in the first one. Maybe I'll throw a label in the next one, and then I'll put some buttons in the other two. A toggle button. Alright, so you can see there's different buttons in there, and again we can go in and rename them. We can go down and change the text that's in them, like this. And you can have multi-lines of text very easily. Alright, so it's very convenient to do the outline and do the shape of whatever it is that you want to create. And again, you've got the padding, you can turn it on and off, and you can change the size. There's some other variables in here you can do. You can tell it that you want it to be a certain width, and if you were doing stuff with PYVCP, you can actually go in here and put handler events in, and then when they click on the button it'll call for a handler event. We're not using that in Linux CNC, but just be aware that it's there. Now I want to show you, once we do that, to add coloring you will need to have a separate Python file, and just basically you could copy this and then go into this section here and put in the name of your button or whatever the object is you want to change the color on, and you can go in and change the color and other attributes, and you can just look that up and see what things can be changed, like font size and type of font and so forth. Right now we're just playing with the colors here. Okay, now I do want to show you there is 2 versions of Glade. You want the one with the yellow icon. The one with the green icon is a newer one, which is really spiffy for doing Python programming. But if you try doing these Glade in there and you try opening it up, you see you've got a bunch of garbage. It's because it does not have the HAL components in there. So just be aware that when you download Glade, you'll probably get the one with the yellow icon box, which is great. And then if you want to do any Python programming, totally separate subject of course, then you want to use the green one because it's a little more advanced and has some other features. So we'll look briefly into the directories for each one here, and you can see that for the PYVCP we've got our typical INI and HAL files. We've got our custom GUI, and then all the way down at the bottom you see that we've got a panel.xml. Okay, when you take a look at the Glade version, you're going to see it's very, very similar. Okay, so this is the Glade VCP, pretty much the same. Up about midway you're going to see a panel.glade, that's the actual panel, and then down at the bottom you're going to see a panel PYC. That gets automatically created when you run Axis the first time. Okay, and below that is the panel PY. That's that little file where you go and change the colors and everything for the actual panel.glade. So the major difference between this and a PYVCP is the PYVCP has one document which specifies how the entire panel is laid out, all the colors and everything. Whereas with Glade you have one document that specifies all the buttons and how they're laid out, and then a second document which goes in and makes any changes to them for colors or fonts or so forth. It's just the way it is. And which one do you use? Totally your choice, personal preference.